You're fired for letting that filthy homeless person into the store. This place has been dirtied. Your presence only pollutes the air more. Just go home, right now, immediately. I was kicked out by the manager without a chance to explain myself. Outside a high-end brand store on the streets of Fifth Avenue in New York. I was fired from the job I had worked so hard at. Check this out. Look at the news. The next day, when I went to complete my resignation procedures, the TV in the back room was showing the scruffy old man from yesterday. A shock greater than anything I'd experienced before awaited me. As I went from Fifth Avenue to my mother's suburban apartment, a stranger greeted me with a smile. "Hey there, son. My name is Michael Johnson. I'm 27 years old. I work as a salesperson at the Fifth Avenue boutique of George Ray, a high-fashion brand known worldwide. Up until 3 months ago, I was working in the e-commerce department of this luxury fashion brand, but after a minor dispute, I was reassigned, leaving me in a difficult spot. Ever since I joined the company as a fresh graduate, my ambition had always been to work in the e-commerce division. The benefits of selling clothes online are tremendous. I've always felt that there are only advantages to it, long before it became the norm in today's world. Growing up, I lived in various small towns across the country with my mom. I was a kid who had no interest in toys or cartoons, but for some reason, I had a strange fixation on fashion. I like clothes with a bit of an accent, something distinctive. But in those days, in the rural town, although magazines were available, the clothes featured in them could nowhere be found in the local stores. It wasn't until I was in middle school that I finally could buy some clothes online. I saved up my little allowance, and I still keep the first stylish t-shirt I bought in my closet, treasuring it. Even in the countryside, e-commerce sites that sold real clothes from magazines were a godsend. I believe I received a job offer at this competitive company because I passionately discussed those days during my job interview, despite not being particularly outstanding. That's the only reason I can think of. Everyone at this brand seems to have some sort of standout background, lived abroad, parents are designers, or they themselves look like models. You know, the upper echelons of society. There's nobody who has spent childhood in a sleepy small town like me. That's no surprise since our brand emphasizes a fashionable, high society vibe, and employees are expected to dress smartly. Even working behind the scenes in the e-commerce department, I made sure to dress well and use accessories creatively when going to the office. I love fashion, but it's tough on my wallet since I don't earn much. In addition to buying clothes, I've also overextended myself in choosing where to live, as a reaction to my past. Michael, you're a grown-up with a job now. You can do as you please. But I'm going to enjoy my freedom. I've got my own skills, my mom would say. I brought my mom to the big city, New York, when I got a job, intending to do something kind for her. I wanted to be nearby to help her if anything happened. But my mom, she lives in an affordable apartment in the suburbs of New York, not in the same district as me. She's always been the type to prioritize budgeting practicality above all. According to her, my dad left home before I was old enough to remember, and, while they haven't officially split up, there's been no contact, so she just lets it be. I've never seen my father's face, but I have this sense that he's out there somewhere. He occasionally sends money on a whim, but it's always sporadic. My mom went back to nursing school at an older age, got her degree, and then worked at clinics in remote locations, raising me on her own. She chose these remote places because she never officially divorced my dad but hated him at her core and didn't want him to find her. She told me this after we moved to New York. It wasn't because of violence or emotional abuse. It was just his irresponsibility and extreme optimism that started to grate on her after I was born. Even though I don't know my father, I can feel that such a light-hearted person wouldn't have meshed well with my pragmatic mom. Michael, sometimes you remind me a bit of your father. My mom would occasionally grumble, reminding me to be more self-disciplined. I think that's a pretty good mother-son relationship, although I have no idea in what ways I resemble him. Since becoming a salesperson at the boutique, I spend more time in front of the mirror before work than ever. I have to think about not just what to wear to work, but also during work. I must wear at least one piece from our brand in front of the customers, and it can't be the same outfit every day, which means a lot of outfit planning, even for someone who loves clothes. Plus, I'm not that tall, So many items don't fit the brand's image on me. Actually, finding items that do suit me is quite the challenge. Sigh, I wish I could go back to the e-commerce department. I can't help but mutter pathetically. But the chance of me returning to my previous department is almost impossible. I had a conflict with the head of the e-commerce department. It was 4 months ago, around the time when people's attire shifted from autumn to winter. The head of the e-commerce department, Thomas Anderson, made a bold statement at a general meeting. I'm thinking of automating customer service on our e-commerce site using AI. Everyone except me agreed with this statement. Sir, with all due respect, I think this will make it difficult to address individual customer needs. The quality of service might decline. Then, the employees who agreed with the proposal gave me looks of annoyance. Our e-commerce department was unpopular within the company, populated by individuals who reluctantly worked there due to their inability to join more glamorous departments. So, led by the manager, everyone was mostly thinking about how to work less. I, who prioritized sales and customer satisfaction, always felt somewhat out of place. Appreciate your perspective, Mr. Johnson. However, given the current downturn in the apparel industry, implementing AI can reduce labor costs. Relying solely on human interaction for non-in-store customers isn't efficient. Shouldn't we adopt technology suitable for the times? I showed the manager and others data about customers who like our brand but can't visit the store, illustrating how careful customer service increased our repeat business. However, the managers didn't seriously look at the data or listen to the explanation, continually advocating for AI implementation and automation with illogical arguments. So, I kept advocating for the importance of human customer service. During these discussions, it became clear that the manager and other employees didn't even understand what AI could do. They seemed to think that implementing it would reduce their workload. That wouldn't lead to cost reduction or efficiency. The meeting ended that day, and from then on, I started being treated as a nuisance in the department. Still, I didn't change my stance. Compiling and distributing documents about the current limitations of AI and printing out customer feedback. My documents were always thrown away unread. Realizing this wasn't working, I decided to take a bold step and speak to the higher-ups. I persistently asked Thomas Anderson to allow me to attend a meeting where managers of all departments and higher positions gathered to make a proposal. The manager consistently refused my requests. Are you just trying to smear mud on my face by doing this? Not at all. I want you, sir, to understand the importance of human service and cooperate. It's not yet time to consider implementing AI. Enough already, really. Instead of needlessly opposing, why don't you just go ahead and work on implementing AI? With neither great education nor good looks, at least be obedient, for heaven's sake. Every day I pleaded with the manager, and every day he berated me. But one day, unusually, Mr. Anderson approached me with a smile. Johnson, your wish might come true. Come to the board meeting tomorrow. Aren't you lucky? At that moment, I felt my persistence had paid off and was moved. But it wasn't to be. Without human service, we can't compete in the industry. The essence of apparel is person-to-person interaction, even for an e-commerce site. Just as I started to passionately argue at the meeting, Mr. Anderson interrupted me and began to speak himself. So, that's the situation. We have a passionate employee in our department. What do you think, Mr. Smith? Does he meet your expectations? I turned to the man called Smith. He was the head of the sales department. As expected from someone interacting with customers in a high-end store, Mr. Smith looked sharp, resembling a senior model, dressed in our company's finest attire from head to toe, wearing all our brand's items. His outfit must have cost thousands. Mr. Smith looked me up and down before saying, Johnson, was it? Can you do the kind of customer service where you don't actually sell anything? I didn't understand what he was asking. Customer service in a clothing store, but not selling anything. Our brand is prestigious and cool, with stores as beautiful as castles. However, we occasionally attract customers who don't align with our image. Honestly, we don't want them here, nor do we want them to buy our clothes. It would be best if only high-end customers wore our brand. What? Isn't our company's policy to provide quality clothing to many customers? I checked the reactions of the other executives. Such an elitist approach couldn't possibly be acceptable. But the other executives, just like Mr. Smith, seemed proud of this stance. Suddenly, Mr. Anderson burst out laughing. Ha ha ha. Johnson, did you truly believe in such idealistic notions? We're not a budget brand. We're selective about our clientele, particularly wary of online shoppers. It's impractical to prioritize catering to low-income individuals seeking internet sales. Our e-commerce site is solely for inventory clearance. I felt so dizzy standing there that I could barely keep myself upright. Sure, our staff are prideful, but the upper management was on a whole different level. A group of people with strong elitist views, believing in serving only a select group of customers. What was the image of the good apparel company I had believed in? A dream, an illusion. Caught in this sense of unreality, all I could do was stand there silently. We called you to this meeting for an internal interview. You're no longer required in the e-commerce department. If you're interested in customer service, perhaps Mr. Smith from sales could accommodate you. What do you say, Mr. Smith? While Mr. Anderson casually said something terrible and looked to Mr. Smith for confirmation, I was too shocked to move. Well, Johnson, your first name is Michael, correct? George Ray and Michael, you're fortunate to have such a strong name. It might have played a role in your hiring. However, our clothes don't complement your appearance. You could serve as an example if you excel in a non-sales service role. Before I could say anything, I was transferred to the sales department. Realizing the trivial true reason I was hired, I felt a sense of despair and could only answer yes to the transfer. At that time, I regret not being stronger, not insisting on staying in the e-commerce department. E-commerce lacked comfort, while in the sales department, especially in a prime retail store, I felt distant and isolated from my colleagues right from the start. It was the worst work environment. The sales staff at this store all looked like celebrities, brimming with confidence that seemed to radiate from within. Such people don't seem to mingle with ordinary folks like me. Mr. Smith, who also serves as the area manager, was one of the reasons I was isolated, as he influenced everyone to act this way. Everyone. Johnson here specializes in non-selling interactions. Teach him the bare minimum, but avoid getting too friendly in a way that customers might misinterpret. That's how Mr. Smith introduced me. The colleagues coldly acknowledged with a yes. I didn't know when I was in e-commerce, but apparently, condescending service was the norm in the store. I always bought our products online, so I was unaware of this aspect. Incredibly, the staff would quickly assess customers' shoes, bags, and accessories to decide how to treat them. On my first day, when a mother and child in non-branded down jackets, sneakers, and a crumpled reusable bag entered, all my colleagues ignored them. Here's your chance, Johnson, Mr. Smith said, patting my shoulder, and I approached the mother and child. Welcome. Are you looking for something specific? Seemingly unused to being addressed, the mother and child flinched at my approach. Oh, no, just browsing. We were interested in the dress in the front window. That dress is lovely. I'll show you where it is, I said, about to lead them. But Mr. Smith stepped in front of us. Excuse me, ma'am. Unfortunately, that item sold out just a moment ago. It seems it wasn't meant to be for you. Please do visit us again. I was stunned, thinking, what? Despite the dress being in stock, the mother and child left the store hurriedly, seeming embarrassed. They might have wanted to see other clothes, right? They said they wanted to browse, I said to Mr. Smith, but I was taken to the back room. Customers like them should be turned away immediately. Reusable bags pose a threat to our brand image. If someone wears our clothes and carries a reusable bag, it's the end of our brand image, right? Say unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. Please visit us again to prevent online complaints. Mr. Smith said this as if teaching a normal job, but it didn't seem normal to me. However, any other type of customer service would get me scolded. So for 3 months, day after day, I reluctantly carried out the task of saying, unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. Please visit us again. I couldn't find passion in my work. Even knowing the harsh reality behind the scenes, I couldn't bring myself to leave the brand I had long admired. But a department change seemed impossible, and with mixed feelings, I had no choice but to continue as a salesperson. Reluctantly, I chose my clothes every morning and went to work with a heavy heart. Then one day, while working in my usual discontent, I noticed an old man near the entrance, dressed in a way that seemed out of place in Fifth Avenue. He was wearing tattered, torn clothes, not resembling any brand, and sandals on his bare feet in the cold weather. Allowing this old man inside would surely earn me a reprimand from Mr. Smith. I forced a smile and approached the entrance. As the old man was about to open the door, I pressed the doorknob to stop him. "Hello, are you lost?" I asked him outside the store. "I'm looking for George." "I'm sure is George. This is the place, right?" The old man's hands and face were blackened like those of a homeless person. "Is that so? This is George Ray, but are you sure you're in the right place?" I'm sure I'm not mistaken. It's a secret, but I'm an acquaintance of George," the old man said. Hearing that the old man claimed to know our brand's chief designer, I hesitated. If I turned him away, it could be disrespectful. He was poorly dressed, but his speech was coherent. Taking a risk, I let the old man into the store. My colleague's eyes immediately filled with anger. "Huh? When did our men's line get completely revamped? It's more casual now. Oh, the leather for the belts has changed its country of origin. The models for the ladies' line have gotten taller, too." As the old man walked quickly through the store, commenting at length on each product, I followed him, repeating the explanations for the comments he had already moved past. This old man might have looked unkempt, but he seemed no ordinary person. 20 minutes later, as if to stop the old man's progress, Mr. Smith appeared. "Sir, what are you looking for? Please allow me to assist you. Don't bother finding it yourself. What can I do for you?" To Mr. Smith's words, the old man replied nonchalantly, "No, I can't buy anything. I don't have any money." Mr. Smith gently apologized for the lack of connection and assured the old man out of the store. As the old man waved goodbye and left, Mr. Smith turned to me with a fixed smile but spoke in a stern tone. "You are fired for letting that filthy homeless person into the store. This place has been dirtied. Your presence only pollutes the air more. Just go home, right now, immediately." I was kicked out without a chance to explain, as my colleagues from the backroom handed me all my personal belongings and escorted me out of the store. Standing in the middle of the bustling Fifth Avenue, I looked up at the dry, cold sky in a daze. After a night passed, a bit of calmness returned. I had been fired, but the formalities were still necessary. I dressed in a carefully coordinated outfit as usual and headed to the company. Entering through the back door of the store, I immediately ran into Mr. Smith. Despite his intimidating look telling me to leave, I managed to ask him to formalize the firing procedure. "I'm just not in the mood. I don't have the energy for such troublesome matters." "You get that right. Even so, the dismissal procedure can't proceed without the manager's involvement." While we were arguing, suddenly a female colleague's scream came from the back room. "Look at this. Everyone, watch the news." Both Mr. Smith and I, startled by her voice, turned to look at the television screen. Paris-originated global brand David K. has announced the firing of its chief designer, Mr. David Johnson, due to his disappearance. However, Mr. Johnson was reportedly seen yesterday on Fifth Avenue. The short video clip shown with the viewer's submission featured the homeless-looking old man from yesterday. David K. is a high-end brand similar to ours in consumer demographics. Mr. Smith, with a smirk, said, "Ha, the downfall of David K., a chief designer turned homeless person. Ha ha, it's uplifting news. Johnson, you're fortunate. Given this amusing development, I'll handle your dismissal procedure properly. So, once again, goodbye." As I walked home through the crowded streets of Fifth Avenue, I thought about the identity of the old man. It made sense that he had such deep knowledge of design if he was a designer. While I was lost in thought, my phone rang. It was an email from my mom, asking me to come over to her apartment tonight. I decided to head there directly. To my astonishment, the guest at her place was that old man. "Hey there, son." The old man cheerfully called me his son while raising his hand. My mom sipped her tea with a resigned look. I was speechless, comparing the two, battling the confusion in my head. About an hour later, I almost finished listening to my mother and the old man and managed to grasp the situation. This old man, or rather, David Johnson, was indeed my real father. Yesterday, his attire made him look older, but now, dressed neatly, he appeared to be in his 60s. Right after I was born, My father left my mother and me to fly to Paris. Originally training as a designer, he met my mother, who was then a department store clothing salesperson, and they married soon after, with me arriving the following year. Then he left for Paris. My father claimed my birth ignited his desire to be a great father, but my mother saw it as him chasing his own dreams irresponsibly, I learned. My father, David Johnson, achieved great success in Paris, establishing his own brand and quickly becoming famous. Throughout all these years, until yesterday, he never once returned to see my mother and me. Why did he suddenly come back? The reason was selfish. I lost everything. In the end, family is the only thing you can rely on, he admitted. Just as my mother had always told me, he was a self-centered and irresponsible father. From the beginning, David had conflicts with the management of his brand. Although his brand, David K., focused on luxury and high quality, he actually preferred a more casual style. Somehow, his casually designed clothes would end up being transformed into luxury items. It's strange, my clothes sell differently than how I imagined them. I was grateful to those who wore my designs, so I thought it was fine, he reflected. For decades, he compromised with the management he disagreed with. But last year, they decided to turn the brand into a snobbish label that selectively chooses its customers. I couldn't stand the idea of sellers choosing their buyers. That would mean people who like my designs couldn't afford them. As I kept opposing this, I was fired from my own brand. Ridiculous, right? The reason for his dismissal announced by David K. yesterday was, in fact, different. My father, David Johnson, had been fired 6 months ago and had been wandering aimlessly since then. He finally remembered my mother and me and returned, but had no means of finding us. Eventually, he ran out of money and ended up living like a homeless person. He befriended an informative homeless man and helped him for 3 days, finally getting information about my mother's apartment and the store where I worked. I finally understood that the George my father was looking for yesterday referred to George Ray. The tumultuous story of my father's life was too much for an ordinary person like me to take in all at once. However, I found myself respecting his belief that brands should not choose their customers. And what now? What are you planning to do after finding me and Michael? Surely, you don't think we're going to live together? I absolutely refuse, my mother interjected. I was coming around to forgiving my father, but my mother still wanted to reject him. Even though we're family. That's cold. I've got nowhere else to go. Do you think you have the right to say that after leaving us and not making any contact? My mother retorted. As I listened to their argument, I remembered that I was unemployed. I couldn't even offer to let my father stay in my apartment long term. What should I do? Knowing I was interrupting, I cut into their conversation. Mom, sorry, but can I also stay here for a while? I got fired yesterday. My mother's mouth fell open. She stopped talking, and the next moment, she burst into tears. You guys are so irresponsible. I can't take this anymore. My father and I awkwardly scratched our heads. I had not lived my life intending to be irresponsible, but from my mother's perspective, I suppose that's how it seemed. Maybe Dad and I are similar in some way. Dad, for tonight, come stay at my apartment. Oh, all right, thank you. It felt odd to suddenly call a man I had known as a stranger until yesterday Dad and share a meal with him, but the lack of discomfort might just prove our blood relation. A week after inviting him to my place, we spent a lot of time discussing how we could live without making my mother cry. Dad, first, I think I need to find a new job. Son, me too. Also, Dad, I want to work in apparel again. Son, me too. We started to think maybe we could work together, building a new brand with Dad and selling the clothes on an e-commerce site. We didn't have the funds for a physical store, so we thought of using someplace cheap and spacious as our base. We visited my mother's apartment again, and both of us knelt down. Please let us use your apartment as our workspace. I'm begging you, it's the only place I could think of. This time, my mother didn't cry. Instead, she made Dad write a declaration. If he was going to live here, he couldn't just leave for another place on a whim. Don't take living together as a family lightly. If you decide to live together, it's unacceptable to just disappear on your own. If you're ready to understand the anger and sadness of those left behind, Then I'll talk to the landlord about letting you use the prefab in the back of the garden. The bigger the space, the better, right? Dad responded with a loud yes, ma'am. Humph. Well, even if your business doesn't work out, I can support you if you're going to stay here. I realized that my mother didn't want Dad to leave her again, and I couldn't help but feel teary. Thus, we started our first unexpected family life together. Dad was still eccentric and unreasonable in many ways, causing minor conflicts, but somehow we managed to live together amicably. Dad and I decided on a casual version of haute couture for our new brand concept. The brand name was David and George M. It was a fusion of Dad's original desire to create casual clothing for many people, and my wish to cater to each customer's individual needs. Haute and haute couture means high-end in French, so it might seem like a contradictory concept at first, but it really wasn't. Seeing Dad's craftsmanship for the first time, I couldn't help but admire his talent, despite being my parent. His ideas for designs were endless, and there was no waste in his choice of materials, his efficiency, or the time he spent. Even within the range of casual wear, he could create the finest garments at the set prices, enabling us to offer casual yet luxurious clothing. As half a year, then a year passed, our brand quietly became famous, thanks to Dad's reputation and word of mouth. I worked hard to connect Dad's clothes with the customers' requests. No matter how unreasonable the demands were, I addressed them seriously and aimed to satisfy the customers. The reputation spread, and opportunities for magazine interviews and providing clothes for advertisements increased. By this time, my mother's apartment had become too cramped. I also felt the need for a larger space and new employees. Just then, we were looking for a solution to this situation. News came that both George Ray, my former workplace, and David K., my father's former workplace, had faced their worst ever performance declines. Both Dad and I naturally felt worried about the struggles of our former employers. David K. began to frequently reach out to Dad with flattering words, asking him to return. Every time such a message arrived, Dad's shoulders would slump in sadness. Yet, he never replied with a decision to go back to Paris. I guessed he wanted to keep his promise to my mother. However, my mother seemed to feel sorry for Dad, who lost a bit of his spirit with each message from Paris. Why don't you go back for a bit and then return here? She knew that if Dad left, he might never return, but still, she gave him that permission. On a clear early summer afternoon, Dad boarded a plane to Paris. My mother and I looked up at the sky, watching several planes fly by in the suburbs. He bought a round-trip ticket, but in reality, it's just a one-way ticket. I couldn't agree or disagree with my mother's calm words. I wanted to work with Dad, but couldn't decide if it was for the best. With Dad gone, David and George M. stopped taking orders. My mother's apartment became suddenly quiet, and I started a part-time job at a local clothing store. Resigned to Dad not returning, we, mother and son, lived an ordinary life. It was business as usual. With a somewhat hollow heart, I went through life routinely as autumn arrived. Every morning, I made it a habit to gaze at the vast sky beyond the colorful trees in the yard. It was the same yard where Dad's boisterous voice used to echo early in the mornings, urging me to wake up quickly, to hurry up with the orders. Hey, Dad's always in such a rush. I remembered those nostalgic conversations with a smile. Hey, hurry up and take the orders. Hey, stop gawking at the sky. Wait, what? I turned around, towards the sound of my father's living voice. I couldn't believe it. Dad had returned. What? No way. Why did you come back? Paris-originated global brand David K. has announced the firing of its chief designer, Mr. David Johnson, due to his disappearance. However, Mr. Johnson was reportedly seen yesterday on Fifth Avenue. 3 foreigners alighted from the car behind Dad and entered the yard. Nice to meet you, Michael. These guys are joining David and George M. from today. I brought back only geniuses. As Dad introduced them with a beaming smile, Mom, appearing from somewhere, interjected. You. Just a little while you said, but you took too long. So irresponsible. Mom was crying, hiding her face, but she seemed happy, tears of joy. Dad had gone to Paris to negotiate. He went to collect compensation for his wrongful termination from David K. and to poach promising employees from a company on the brink of bankruptcy. He had always intended to return. I made a lifelong promise to Mom. A contract is absolute. I remembered that David K. was the one who broke the contract with me. We, along with the new employees, moved to a larger property in the suburbs. David and George M. started anew in a spacious house. While our new brand was flourishing, both David K. and George Ray collapsed under enormous debts and had to shut down. David and George M. seemed set for further expansion. We would probably need to enlarge our workspace and facilities again soon. No matter where we moved, we would stay together. It was a family community we discovered late, but because of that, we wanted to cherish it deeply and for a long time to come.